What's going on, everybody? Welcome to a brand new mini-series here at the Geekiverse. It's kind of a big mini-series, but mini, you're kidding me. So 23 episodes coming your way. What has 23 in it? You guessed it. Currently, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Welcome to MCU Review. We've been talking about doing something like this for a long time now. Really, really excited to get this underway. I'm Josiah Leroy. With me, seemingly as always, my man, John Fick.
Man, I'm so excited to be here.
John, this is your baby.
Yeah.
You're beaming right now.
I am.
Like a proud dad.
It's just, you get to a situation where you sit through 23 movies and you're dumbfounded that they pulled it off. There's this saga. It's a decade, and there's so many films, and they're so good, and it's such a good story. You just want to talk about it. I mean, it's something that I go through all the time. Ever since this Disney Plus came out, I just want to rewatch these movies and I want to talk to somebody about it. Now we got the show. The MCU Re-Viewed is here. We rewatch, we review. Baby, I'm in.
It's now given us another reason to watch the MCU movies.
As if we needed
it.
It's
quite incredible. As if we needed it. Joining us, the new face at the Geekiverse. He's everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. The Platinum King.
There it is.
Rashawn Anderson.
What's up, everybody? What's going on?
So, excited to bring you this show. We kind of sort of did this a little bit with Star Wars. We only got about a third of the way through.
We'll get there.
We'll revisit that at some point.
We
will.
I commit that. I'm committing to you. We will do that.
We will do it. It's called Hindsight, a Star Wars series. We were doing it in the lead up to Rise of Skywalker. Fall off the tracks a little bit, but you can go watch episodes 1 through Solo. Almost, no. Yeah, Solo,
we did Solo.
right now.
So all we're missing is the new trilogy, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So what we are doing here today, we're going to talk about Iron Man. But first, MCU Review is presented by our friends at Fantastic. Some of the best people you'll ever meet. What do? They sell geeky themed shirts that you can find at 26shirts.com/fantastic. That's FANTEESTIC. And proceeds go to those in need. Real quick, some of the situations that their proceeds have helped over the years. Families with needs like a young daughter fighting leukemia, another daughter who has had an eye removed because of rare pediatric cancer, a family whose son was hit by a car. There's no end to the amount of wonderful people that 26 Shirts and Fantastic have helped over the years. They have raised over $750,000 directly to these families since their inception just a few years back. We are extremely pleased and proud to have them be a part of this. So as always, MCU Review will be presented by Fantastic. More on them later in the show. Guys, we are here today to talk about this movie right here.
And he's got the hard copy coming in hot.
Got the hard copy. Got all the hard copies, so we'll be able to do that. We'll post some links to where you can find this.
There we go. Look at that.
Yeah, look
we got
at
two
that.
covers. I think Rashawn's is a more OG. I think yours is a re-release.
Yeah, this is the OG.
Yeah,
this
for
is
sure.
the OG right here.
Dude, Rashawn, that one is awesome. So, real quick background on this. I became an MCU fanboy when Avengers came out, 2012. First Avengers movie.
As did many.
I'm definitely not alone in that. When that shared universe hit me, that was a possibility, and that it was so cool and so well done on what I thought was a large scale with Avengers. I mean, my goodness, look what we've done with Infinity War. That I went out to Best Buy and bought every MCU movie without seeing them.
Oh, wow.
That was it. We'll get into a little bit more nitty gritty on that shortly.
Cool.
But this was one of the movies that I purchased. So, John, why don't we give a little bit of a rundown on what the series is going to look like here week in, week out?
Yeah, so of course weekly we're going to ask you guys if you want to follow along from home. Every Monday we're going to post this. So you've got a whole week We're going in order, release order, of course. We're not going to try to get fancy and go in different timelines and the yearly order, stuff like that. Crazy people that like to watch the prequels before the original trilogy in Star Wars. We're not getting silly like that. Release order every week, 23 weeks, unless we double up. We'll figure that out. That's a lot of weeks. We'll see what's going on. But you'll always know. Follow us on Twitter over at the Geekiverse on Twitter. We want you following along. We want to be in the comments, feeling like you're part of the show as well. I want to get some Twitter reviews and see what other people think, not just us. So I want engagement to be a big part of this one. Every week doing a show, we're going to be breaking down. First, we're going to watch the trailer. That was a great idea. We didn't have that in the show notes until recently. We're going to watch the very first trailer, see what that looks like. We're going to break down our thoughts and impressions. We're going to rank the MCU every week. That rank is going to change. So we're going to fight. That is by far what I'm most excited for, to see how this shared ranking plays out. Basically, at the end of every episode, we're gonna pull up a graphic with our current rankings, and we're gonna fight out where we think it belongs in the list. So we're gonna vote. We're gonna see where it lands, and we've got a little special surprise too. So we've got something called the snap. You might see over on our sides here. We've got a couple of Infinity Gauntlets here. The snaps. So those snaps represent an action that we can take if we think that something got snubbed. Say Rashawn and we think Iron Man is better than Guardians of the Galaxy, so it gets a higher spot. Josiah disagrees. He can use one of his snaps. He puts out a Twitter poll over on the Geekiverse's Twitter, and it simply says Iron Man versus Guardians of the Galaxy. If the fans come through and they win it for him, those two numbers flip. He gets what he wants. Yeah. The rankings are affected. So we each get 3 snaps. That's going to be pretty fun. They have to be touching. So it has to be. We can only let one movie hop another. We're not going to be able to pull Thor: Dark World from very last place and throw it at number 1. We're not letting that happen. Not happening. So yeah, they have to be touching. We get 3 of them. You can save them. You cannot use them if we all agree. Not a big deal. But that's going to be a lot of fun using those snaps. So definitely follow us over on Twitter at the Geekiverse, because that's where those polls will be. Feel free to promote this. Like once you put that poll out there, get all your friends, try to get somebody famous to retweet it, get all the interaction you want, because you're gonna need some help.
So John, a little housekeeping here on the show.
Yeah.
If we're a few weeks in and I want to use my first snap, I could do that middle of the show without you guys knowing. Correct? Or do we need to wait until we figure things out?
So in my eyes, the snaps would happen after the show. You would have an idea throughout the week, and you would put out that tweet. And that poll will run until the next show.
Sounds good.
So you'll reveal whether or not your snap was successful that very next show.
Beautiful.
Yep.
I love it. So, quick spoiler alert to everybody out there. I know for a fact, when given the opportunity, John's going to try to rile me up. I see it in his smirk right now. Just look at him. It's going to happen. We have a lot of the same rankings because we both previously ranked the MCU. And there are a few notable exceptions, which you'll see in the coming weeks, and it's going to be a blast. Rashawn, I'm getting to know Rashawn a little bit here, so we'll see kind of where people go with different rankings and how we use our snaps. But guys, it's going to be this fun. Is going to be a blast.
And I will say, we've both ranked the MCU before. I could not, off the top of my head, give you even my top 10 of what I've ranked them in before. I always like to try to do it with a fresh look, and as I've just watched these movies, kind of pair them against what I had just seen. I think that's the most fun way to do it, rather than to just like pull up a list of 23 movies and just drag them around without having any fresh context. I don't even know if I can tell you the top 5 I picked for the last time I did an MCU ranking. So I always like to to redo this because it's just fun. I just like talking the MCU. It
changes.
It does. It does change. Absolutely. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, totally into it. Do we want to start with the trailer?
Yeah, let's get up the Iron Man trailer. So we all have to pull it up on our own devices here. So give us a second.
What is happening while John's pulling that up? If you're watching the show, you're watching at youtube.com/thegeekiverse or at thegeekiverse.com. You may be listening to this in podcast form on a number of different podcast providers. That being said, we're going to be silent for about 2 minutes and 29 seconds. No, the podcast did not go dead. Just wait it out or fast forward. Nothing obviously we can do about that, but from the video end, you'll be seeing what we're watching here because we want to watch this and react to it.
They're going to hear the trailer, the podcast version. It'll come through fine, so you'll be able to listen along. Paint yourself a little picture. Try to visualize and conceptualize what you think the Iron Man trailer looks like just via sound.
Gotcha. So disregard what I said. You will hear the trailer.
Yeah, you won't be able to see
and
it,
do what
though.
John said there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I tried to find like the very first trailer I can find. I did see some people in the comments saying like, oh, like the very first trailer doesn't exist anywhere. I don't recall. I remember Iron Man being a thing, but this is the first one I found.
Mr. Stark, you've been called the Da Vinci of our time. What do you say to that?
Absolutely ridiculous. I don't paint.
What do you say to your other nickname, the Merchant of Death?
That's not bad. They say the best weapon is one you never have to fire. I prefer the weapon you only need to fire once. That's how Dad did it. That's how America does it. And it's worked out pretty well so far. To peace.
Is it cool if I take a picture with you?
Yes, it's very cool. I don't want to see this on your MySpace page. Please, no gang signs. No, throw it up. I'm kidding.
You have till tomorrow to assemble my missile.
I should be dead already.
Unless it was for a reason.
I just finally know what I have to do.
That doesn't look like a missile. What are you building, Stark?
I'm working on something big.
All right, boys. What do we think of that trailer?
Rashawn, you go first.
It's kind of surreal seeing that. I remember that trailer, but
I don't.
I haven't watched again. It's been this was 12 years.
Yeah.
First time I ever saw that trailer just now.
Probably me too.
Yeah.
Maybe I've seen it on a commercial when I, back in 08 or 9, but like that does not seem very familiar.
It's tough to read. Yeah, I only remember little snippets of it. Just of course being a little nerd at that time. It's great. I mean, I love the. Of course, you got to play Iron Man in the Iron Man trailer, of course. And we'll talk about this throughout most of these movies, but just seeing this stuff now, knowing the end result, and obviously, the MCU isn't over; it'll continue. But just knowing the end result and then putting that into context and at what we were seeing back then, like the only thing that comes to mind, at least from the trailer aspect, is I feel like I remember feeling like not necessarily the dream come true. That was more Avengers, but just looking at Robert Downey Jr. at that time and being like, man, like, and obviously before seeing the movie, but just from the trailer, he captured what I would want in an Iron Man, what I wanted from Tony Stark. And I got that just from the trailer. So getting to see that come to life, getting to see a live action Iron Man, not gonna lie and say that was something I've always wanted. That's something you would want growing up, like Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, X-Men, way back in the classic Marvel days. But seeing a live action Iron Man was something that was like, what?
It's cool, exactly. Yeah, so I think that's where I'm at with it too. Is I don't think I remember much of this trailer. I don't even know how much I was aware of this movie coming out before it was already out. I know for a fact that I saw it in theaters, but I remember doing so because there was already buzz around it. I remember maybe not going on opening weekend, but maybe the following weekend after some friends had already seen it. And back in '08, I didn't really like. I was still in high school. I was probably '08. I would have been a junior in high school, sophomore in high school actually. I wasn't running in circles with nerds, to be honest. Like I had friends that were like sort of interested in that stuff, but I didn't get into those friend groups until after high school. So like I didn't have much buzz around this other than like what I saw online, and I'm like, okay, Spider-Man's the best superhero movie, so Iron Man, we'll see. We didn't know what they were going to attempt to build with the MCU. So the buzz hit. Trailers barely affected me. I went to see it. I remember being absolutely blown away by it, though. Like, just straight up, like, I thought Spider-Man was, like, we wanted superhero movies. They perfected it. That's what we want. We got the campiness. We got a little bit of seriousness. I thought you couldn't do it better than Spider-Man. Then Iron Man came out, and I'm like, these guys know what's up. I didn't care about Iron Man before 2 hours ago, but they're doing something cool here.
I think so this is one of 3 MCU movies I did not see in theaters. We'll get back to that in more episodes for us down the line here. But 2008, I think back, and so I was just ahead of your timeline a little bit, John. I was a senior in high school, and Dark Knight was 2008.
Oh yeah,
I saw that 4 times in theaters, which is the most I've ever seen any movie, tied for any Star Wars film, by the way. And
that was actually my number 1 for a while until Endgame. I saw it also 4 times in theaters.
Very nice. So Batman I was Batman crazy, and I was traditionally not a superhero guy. And to your point, John, same thing in high school. I was not really into kind of these nerdy circles, if you will. I was always a video gamer, but more casual, and I'm not really into anything comic booky. Star Wars was about it for me. Enter Batman. That was it for me at that point. I was like, oh my gosh, this is my favorite superhero. Dark Knight, I'm into it. I wanted to go back, play, or read comics.
So were you not
really
into the Raimi Spider-Man movies? Those didn't do much for you?
I saw all of them. I enjoyed them, but it was never anything more than casual.
Got it.
It was never like we eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff now.
Sure.
Then it was like, oh, cool, there's a new Spider-Man, and yeah, I'll go see it. And I saw all 3 of those original ones in theaters. Did not see Iron Man. Looking at this trailer here and watching it, like I said, for the first time, it's so Origin-esque, and that's what the movie is, so that's fine. But I don't know that this would have gotten me excited back in the day. Nowadays, probably, because again, this is what we do. But watching the trailer through and seeing Iron Man in his Iron Man actual suit, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And again, we got to think back. Robert Downey Jr. was a guy that was trying to build his stock back up after some relatively rough years. So coming back into the game here with this, and then he had the Sherlock Holmes movie shortly after that. This was the beginning of a nice prominent return for a guy like that, who I consider to be one of arguably the greatest superhero casting of all time.
Oh, no doubt. I think that was like perfect casting, and I think at that point, like Robert Downey Jr., he was kind of untouchable for like a lot of studios, from what I remember reading. And Jon Favreau was like adamant that they take a chance on this guy. I think if you look up a lot of like the trivia and the quotes, he has the quote that like, I just knew this is the guy that could pull off the lovable asshole, which is straight up what this character is.
I couldn't agree more. We've got kind of on our list here. So do you remember seeing it in theaters? Did you guys each just see this once in theaters?
Just once for sure, but I did see it in theaters.
This is actually one of 2 movies MCU movies I didn't see in theaters. I remember my first experience watching it, but this was actually one I did not watch in theaters.
Gotcha. So we talked about Dark Knight had come out this year. That took over. It was hysteria for a while. Iron Man was there kind of almost quietly in contrast to that. And later on, as we'll talk about next week, Incredible Hulk. So good year for superheroes at the box office. John, do you have the box office numbers pulled up just yet?
Yeah, I do. So total box office on Iron Man 1 was $585 million. So, I mean, a big movie, and especially for 2008, that's a huge movie. Like an absolutely phenomenal box office run. So 585. I mean, it sounds it sounds minuscule to the numbers we're used to talking about with the MCU, obviously. And even you mentioned The Dark Knight. I have that pulled up as well. Dark Knight did just over $1 billion. So it was one of those movies that hit the B. But obviously, very different situations, different caliber. People got to remember, Marvel was not Marvel until the MCU started to. I mean, like, DC was, like, you're talking pop culture. DC was ahead of Marvel in everyone's mind share, unless maybe you were like a comic book fanboy. But for like normal pop culture, it was Batman, it was Superman, it was Joker. Like those were ahead of the Spider-Mans and the X-Men's for a while in terms of mind share before the MCU. So when The Dark Knight comes out, and it is what it is, and it makes that kind of money, like, it's to be expected. The film was incredible. 585 for Iron Man is nothing to scoff at. It's ranked number 74 for lifetime gross. That's not adjusted for anything. So that's just total cash. Number 74, respectable in the top 100.
Yeah, it's good. And even by today's standards, it's good.
Good, yeah.
It's not necessarily good for an MCU movie with how just they've kind of taken off for us.
Yeah.
But 2008, that's saying a lot. And I mean, imagine if Dark Knight pulls the similar numbers to that nowadays. Like, my goodness,
I don't know,
absolutely crazy.
I don't know what the budget was, but I mean, you assume it wasn't anything north of 200 million. It was probably in those low 100s, if that. So I mean, it made its money back and then some. And again, it was the foundation for this. It wasn't a mid-tier movie. It didn't come out after any kind of like established groundwork was laid.
No, John, you couldn't be more spot on. We always, I think, take it for granted nowadays, but this is Iron Man is the hero that built the MCU, arguably, or at least it was the backbone of this to start. Because you're right,
I don't even know how that's arguable. Like, that's
Marvel was not really totally relevant. It was relevant, but not to the degree of dominance that we see nowadays,
Sure.
where people care about these B, C, and D-list superheroes and come out in droves to see them. Whereas you had your headliners back here, and it was still a risk to like take those on. So with Disney and Marvel getting that done, it's just, man, it's quite a different world we live in from 12 years ago when we're talking about Marvel.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting that this is just like what they had to work with. They didn't have Sony, or they didn't have Spider-Man. Sony had Spider-Man locked up. They didn't have Hulk, which right now Hulk kind of seems B tier to us, but like 90s, early 2000s, Hulk was up there with Spider-Man and the X-Men as like the most popular Marvel characters. Hulk has always been up there. That's why we got multiple Hulk movies, series, stuff like that. They didn't even own that. They had to kind of license that movie out. They didn't have X-Men at all. So to take a character like Iron Man, which was like arguably B tier, maybe even C tier at the time, and make it what it was like great work. Great work.
And
one thing. Go ahead, Joe. My bad.
No, you're good, Rashawn. You take over.
Okay. One thing to add too, you guys kind of hinted at it earlier, that this Marvel wasn't the Marvel that we know. Marvel Studios was on the verge of bankruptcy if this movie, at the time, and if this movie doesn't work out, all of the Marvel superheroes get Spider-Man. They get sold off to Universal. Maybe more get sold off to Sony. They get sold off to Paramount. They just get shipped out, and then we never get exactly what we got with the MCU. So that's a big thing to keep in mind as well. So Iron Man, literally, this was like they were on life support.
Yeah,
and Iron Man not only saved the day in the movie, saved the day in real life. So that's a big part of history to know. And the risky thing with this movie too is that, again, we look at it now and it's like, man, that's tough to believe, especially people that grew up with this MCU stuff. Iron Man at the time of release, C tier superhero.
I think it's not even a stretch to say that Iron Man was more iconic for the Black Sabbath song than it was for the comic book character at the time, before that movie came out.
At that time, like, your heavy hitters for Marvel, probably in this order: Spider-Man, Incredible Hulk, X-Men, Fantastic Four.
Yep.
Those are your major players, with Spider-Man and Hulk being global brands.
And spoiler, that's why somebody else owned all of those other brands, because they were worth something.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So they were left with Thor, Captain America. At the time, they were left with scraps, and they turned those scraps into icons that are now the global icons that Spider-Man and Hulk were and still are.
Yep.
It's amazing. And to think like, so we kind of grew up in the middle of it, and maybe to a lesser degree, like I didn't appreciate the turnaround with what we saw with Marvel because I didn't know any better. But there are, think of generations older than us who saw this happen, where, like Rashawn, you said, they became icons. And then we think about generations that are maybe a little younger than us, and even past that, they'll never know probably a time when Marvel isn't king. Obviously, we never know what tomorrow holds, but this MCU is legendary. This is established. Like that's what they're gonna know. How crazy is that?
Yeah, it all starts with Iron Man.
All starts with Iron Man, who he's the father of the MCU. Just some bullet points I wanted to go through. You guys feel free to interrupt me, but I kind of was taking notes as I was watching the movie on Disney Plus just the other day. But as we kind of mentioned, with other studios being involved, you see the Paramount logo right up front.
Yeah, they published and distributed this movie. Yeah.
Amazing, right? Again, that's so foreign to us now with where we are with what Disney and Marvel Studios have done. But back then, this movie was a risk from a financial standpoint for sure. So Paramount is there. A few things that kind of date the movie, which I think is great because we're only 12 years removed from the movie, but it feels like it holds up beautifully, like almost without a step to me. A few references, MySpace.
Yeah.
Right off the bat.
You love that one.
That is one of my favorite ones.
I was on mute. I'm sorry.
No worries.
I had that in my notes too.
Yeah, MySpace. Cool though. Cool to see them, taking stabs. They took the bet on the wrong social media, but hey.
I love it though. I absolutely love that. Tony's phone even is supposed to be this high tech phone, and it's got a version of essentially FaceTime on it, but it looks like a phone easily from the mid 2000s. There.
When I say I wasn't like a nerd in high school, I was a tech nerd. So I remember that Verizon phone coming out and like being such a weird like design. I used to watch like all those phone reviews and stuff like that. So I was super familiar with whatever that phone was called back then. And I'm like, that phone can't do video calling. I know for a fact that thing doesn't do video calling.
Garbage. Yeah, and speaking of other kind of odd references, I don't know if you guys remember or not, but like Burger King was a huge sponsor of this movie too. So obviously, Tony wants a cheeseburger when he gets back to America, and he's eating a Burger King burger. But like Burger King was all.
Yeah. Oh, Josiah froze up on me. Oh, we lost Josiah again. He'll come back in just a second. And he's back already.
But that was kind of another interesting thing.
Josiah, we lost you for a second.
I'm coming back.
Yeah.
I'm coming back.
You're always coming back. Every show.
Am I back?
You're back. The thing I wanted to point out about the burgers, just to gloss over you completely dropping out and ruining the show, is I didn't realize that he ate 3 burgers until this viewing. He eats one burger. He gets out of the limo. He has a wrapper in his hand.
I thought it was just one.
No, when he gets out of the limo, he has a wrapper in his hand. He hands that wrapper to somebody else, and he grabs and he opens another burger as he's walking into the press hall or wherever he's walking into. And then as he's sitting on the stage, he opens another burger and takes a few bites. 3 burgers involved. Big development.
So, yeah, definitely never noticed that. That's either 3 burgers or a problem with continuity. How come that's never talked about? We talk about everything else in the MCU. That was just another interesting thing. Something definitely to note here is we got the original Rhodes, James Rhodes, played by Terrence Howard.
Yeah.
A fine performance. No complaints from my end.
Yeah.
However, he's not the Rhodes to me after what we saw with every movie past this.
Of course, I would have loved to see what Terrence Howard would have done, because I think he had he had a little bit more of that comedic element that Don Cheadle doesn't have. Don Cheadle does great. He's a really, really good Rhodes, great War Machine. He's got those good quips, but they're more like serious, like they're almost like stepfather like quips. Like he's a little prestigious. He's more of a war general, whereas like the first Rhodes we got was a little more slapstick, and I think we could have gotten a little. Just would have loved to see that alternate timeline, what that would have looked like. I'm interested for sure. Don't know if it would have been better. I thought he was great. Who knows what would have happened in the future. Love Don Cheadle too, so can't go wrong.
I agree. Tony and Pepper's relationship. So obviously we know where it gets to, and I think it evolves very nicely over the Iron Man and other MCU movies. But here it's it's mostly work professional, but then they kind of start throwing these quips at each other, and obviously these, the flirting here and there. And I think it's kind of funny to go back and see them where they were, because I forget about their dynamics sometimes in just all of the stuff that happens in the MCU.
Yeah.
So I thought that was something to note as well.
It's so natural and it's not forced. A lot of superhero movies prior and even after, the romance is always so forced. Like they just wanted to make it a part of the story just because. I feel like their relationship, more than any other relationship in most comic book movies, it just flows.
Yeah, and I think
it's natural.
A big reason for that is if you kind of do a little bit more research and read all these MCU facts and quips like I have, the script for Iron Man was not done when they started filming this movie. The script was not done. They were more worried about the action sequences than they were the story, so they wanted to start filming. Jon Favreau wasn't in that mindset. He obviously wanted there to be some good stuff, so he told RDJ to start just ad-libbing. So that if you ever notice in Iron Man, there's a lot of multi-camera shots where they're switching back and forth cam-wise. It's because they were taking so many different takes, because a lot of that stuff was just straight up ad-libbed. So a lot of that, Pepper Potts, Tony, those in, like, I think specifically the stuff where he's in his shop, a lot of that conversation is just straight up natural ad-libbed conversation that just happened on the spot. Probably took a bunch of takes, but it was all just improv. A lot of it, at least. Obviously not the whole movie, but yeah, there's a good amount of improv, and I think it really shows, and the way they really play off each other is natural, like you said.
Yeah, their dynamic is great when it comes to chemistry between RDJ and Gwyneth Paltrow. I think it's if you didn't have that, we're looking at a different story between those two characters for sure. Last kind of note that I had was it's relevant today, the 10 Rings references.
Yeah.
So one of the upcoming movies, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the 10 Rings, I believe it's going to be called. A character I know really nothing about, honestly.
Yeah, me either.
But what an incredible thing that what's going to be prominent in that movie is something that is referenced all the way back in movie number 1. And the MCU does this time and time again, where it pulls old references without feeling out of place and forced, whereas maybe sometimes Star Wars doesn't do as good of a job. For example, the MCU does it and makes it relevant. Sure. Like we see some of these characters or storylines go all the way through. It's just incredible writing.
The way that hits me is a little bit more that it was planning for Iron Man more so than it was for the MCU. Because if I understand, again, I'm not a big comic guy, more of a film MCU kind of guy. The 10 Rings are like huge Iron Man. I mean, that's like Spider-Man Doc Ock stuff. Like, it's a very, very, very big prominent villain / organization in the Iron Man stuff. So I almost feel like that was more of like, all right, at the very least, we want to keep Iron Man going, so we're going to plant, like, those kind of things. Again, great for them to include that kind of stuff. Obviously, we see more of that seed planting later, but cool stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing all these years later. Kind of a quick plug, too. In the lead up to Infinity War, I had written an article on some of my members of the Geekiverse had helped as well, but an article on every single movie. We did call that series Some Assembly Required, which I know we were kind of tossing around names for this at first. But in short, it'll list just a quick synopsis of the movie if you want to get caught up in addition to this episode. Notable appearances. So we kind of listed almost comic book style. So obviously this being the first movie, it'll say first appearance of Iron Man, first appearance of Pepper Potts, James Rhodey, and so on and so forth. We also list what Stan Lee's appearance looks like and the post-credit scenes. Or in this case, scene. So Stan Lee's appearance, we get it midway through the movie here. He's kind of pictured as this Hugh Hefner-like character, and I believe he calls him Hef, right?
He does, yeah. So I love talking about that. Like, again, I don't think there's a real answer out there, but was Tony Stark confusing him for Hef, or was Stan Lee actually playing Hugh Hefner? I wonder what the intent was when they actually filmed that scene. Because obviously they didn't have the foresight to realize that they were going to cameo him in 23 movies from out. Like, they weren't planting that seed. They just wanted to get Hef. They wanted to get Stan Lee in here, obviously just to pay the respect and the homage. But I wonder if he was actually playing Hef, or if Tony just confused them.
I like the ambiguity there. Going unanswered there. However, I'll say, forgive me, didn't Stan Lee cameo in most Marvel movies before that too?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
But he always
Okay.
played a character. I just don't know if it's ever been something on the nose like this before.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a good one. That's in your face. The post-credit scene is Nick Fury kind of laying out the idea of the Avenger Initiative. So, kind of laying the groundwork here for what is.
This post-credit scene
So good.
still gives me butterflies to this very day.
Especially knowing what we know now.
Yes, and I know you guys. You said you weren't big into like the nerd circles or whatnot. I was. So
No, I
like,
was. I just didn't have friends that also were.
right. Fair enough. It's tough for me even to put into words, and I know we'll get to this more so, especially when we get to the first Avengers movie. The concept of an Avengers movie of any sort of live action, of course, but not counting anything animated, but anything live like that just didn't register, just because that's something you laughed off. That's something that's like, pff, okay, they can barely do Blade right. They have a laughable Elektra movie. Spider-Man's nowhere to be found after Spider-Man 3. Like these are things that you just don't think of.
Yeah.
At that time in 2008, and then seeing that and seeing Nick Fury
and seeing Sam
Samuel
Jackson. Like, oh my
I was gonna
God,
say,
like,
right.
Nobody.
Seeing
if that casting was out there and people knew that, I certainly didn't. When I first saw that, I was like,
that was
what?
something that at the time I did not know.
Yeah.
That was definitely a shock to me. So just seeing that and hearing him say, "I'm here to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative," and
Yeah.
it's just like, what?
And watching that now for me, like, it's just the parallels it has to the MCU. What he just straight up says, you don't know this now, but you're part of a bigger universe, and it's just like, now when I watch that, I get chills. There they are.
You can't see it, but yeah, they're there.
There's the Spidey sense. It's just like, man, it's so good. It's just perfect.
And we had no idea. Like we thought, and it got to a point even with the first Avenger where we thought we knew. We didn't know anything.
Nothing.
Rashawn, seriously, like think about that. I think most people would feel the same, but when we got to the original Avengers, I was like, my goodness, this is one of my favorite movies ever. We just had this crazy shared universe with 5 or 6 superheroes. How can it get any better than this? And then we get to Infinity War and Endgame, and like it's just like they were always pushing the ceiling on everything, and it holds such a special place in my heart. I couldn't agree more with you guys. That sentiment that you don't know it yet is so meaningful and important, and goes beyond that movie and that character, and even RDJ, right? Like, just, man, I even wrote my Some Assembly Required Part 1 article that the movie was important for a number of reasons to the MCU and Infinity War, but one of those caveats was that it cast Robert Downey Jr. as a version of himself.
No doubt.
And Jeff Pavlak has always said, there's no acting there. He's not acting. He's having fun.
Yeah.
He's being himself.
That is. If
Improv.
You watch Robert Downey interviews, like as much as I have over the years, like that's him, like straight up.
Yeah.
One thing
absolutely amazing.
One thing I think that's worth noting for this series is we're talking a lot about the entire MCU. That's not always going to happen, but it's just so cool to see where it started. You can't help but watch this movie and think about this movie, and of course absorb it for what it is, but also just think about what it created and how it was such a foundation. So I think we're going to be focusing a lot more on the actual, talking about the contents of movies from here on out, but we can't skip over the importance of the impact this movie had on the MCU.
No, absolutely not. John's right. Like, we can't talk about Iron Man, the character or the movie, without talking about how integral it was to the entire MCU experience, and therefore this show.
Yeah.
It's just, man, it's a beautiful film. I guess let's talk just a little bit more about that if you want. Like, overall, Iron Man as a movie here, if we're just kind of looking at this movie, general thoughts, relative maybe rankings or quality. Let's talk about it a little bit.
I'm gonna give credit, so I'll go the route of I want to give credit to this movie actually, because Marvel and the MCU movies in general have the bad rap of having subpar villains, let's just say. And in fairness to Kevin Feige and Marvel and their direction, they've always stated from the beginning that, hey, our movies are going to be hero centric first. The rest comes later. That was something that they always mentioned way back when. With that being said, though, this movie doesn't follow along that trope. The Obadiah character, for me, in my opinion, it's not a not a Thanos level or a Loki level villain, but I would say out of the many subpar villains that we do have in the MCU, I feel like he is a better one. Just seeing his antics, seeing how he set up Tony from the beginning of the movie, and seeing how that thread follows Tony along the way, and of course the realization, like, man, this guy Obadiah's been in his life since he took over the company when I think they said when Tony was 21 years old.
Yeah.
So seeing that, even Obadiah is obviously older than him, so seeing I'm sure there was a point where he looked to him as a mentor in a way, even though Tony was the boss. So just seeing that thread, and then of course at the end him turning into the Ironmonger and seeing how that stuff turned out. But I personally feel like he is one, and of course Jeff Bridges. How can you not love Jeff Bridges?
Yeah.
Come on. But just seeing that character development from that we don't really see in most of these MCU villains. A lot of it is just like, hey, here's a bad guy, Thor, Guardians, take him out. That's pretty much it.
I gotta respond.
Some depth to it. Yeah,
definitely had some depth to it. So here's how I'll break down Obadiah Stane in Iron Man 1. He was a great character for half of the movie. He was a good villain for a quarter of the movie. And then he was a cartoon, horrible antagonist for the last quarter of the movie. All of it, that stands out to me now more than ever. All of a sudden, Obadiah Stane goes from somebody who has ill will against Tony because he wants the best for his company to a man that will pick up a car with a family of 5 and just sacrifice them to kill Tony. For what? To get the company back? No, that's not going to happen anymore. Like, he throws all... There's a certain point where he throws all of his motivations out the window and just wants to kill Tony, and there's no real reason for that. So that's the only thing that I take away from him being that I would take away from him, his performance as being a great villain, is just it just doesn't hold up, and that's not Jeff Bridges. He is incredible. He's awesome. It's just the writing. It's for the time. It's very early in these superhero movies. It wasn't a smooth transition from somebody who has some ill intentions to somebody who was a mass murdering villain who doesn't really have a way out of this anymore.
Let me clear up my stance real quick. Yeah. Not great, just good, like capital G double O-D.
And again, a lot of it was great, but then there's a specific turn where he holds that family of 5 and is about to murder them for no reason. That's where it kind of turns.
Right.
So I got to talk about Joe Obadiah. I say, give me a second on that. With Obadiah Stane, I love Obadiah Stane. Here's why. I think John kind of put it in a nice breakdown with the 3 parts. For me, just about until the end of his time in the movie, it holds up. Yeah, 2 days ago when I'm watching this movie, the moment that kind of stood out to me, not, aside from the family of 5 in the car, is when he is shooting at Tony and his explanation is that he ripped out his targeting system.
Oh, yeah.
And he's not coming close to hitting him.
Close. Yeah. I remember that too. Yeah. That stood out to me too.
It's like in reality, you're right. Yeah.
Sit still, you little prick. And I thought it was absolutely hysterical.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the moment where I was like, all right, this guy's become cheesy comic book villain guy.
Yeah.
And, that's fine. That's fine. I like campiness.
Again, I still love it, but it's worth critiquing. We're here to review the movie. I think there's just this clear gap between what his original intentions were just to drive Tony out of the company because he wanted what's best and he wanted to keep selling weapons and he wanted Tony out. He wanted to kill Tony, but he didn't want to be public about that, He always wanted to kill Tony. He's the one who ordered the first hit. He didn't want to, trample citizens and murder families of 5. There's a quick turn there. It's just,
Yeah. So a few moments on particularly why I love the character. But what's funny is if you guys know what my dad looks like at all, especially if my dad shaves his head, he looks like Obadiah Stane. So in my phone for the better part of the last 7 years, it's a picture of Obadiah Stane for his ID in my phone. It's just when if you've never seen him and you see him, you'll find the correlation and never be able to unsee it because that's who he is. The other part to this is longtime Geekiverse fans will note a very cheesy and potentially hilarious video that we did to celebrate the release of Civil War. We did a debate. It was meant to be like SNL stupid, where we had a character from someone from our staff play Steve Rogers and someone play Iron Man or Tony Stark, and they had a debate over what was Civil War. I was the moderator, and I played a character named Jobadiah Stane, of course, because why not, right? So that video still exists on our YouTube, and it was so dumb. No, I did not.
Not watching it.
That's why I was Jobadiah. Otherwise, I would have been Obadiah.
You'd still be Jobadiah. Come
on. So 2 moments in the movie that I really loved, particular with him, where I really felt like he was maybe close to peak villain. When he yells at the scientist, and he says, "Tony Stark built this in a cave."
Yes.
That was next level, deep, intense Jeff Bridges. Such presence. And the other time is when Pepper is trying to, or she succeeds in downloading what she needs to the flash drive. Because when he comes around, even that whole scene, there's this sense of horror and dread. Like, oh my gosh, he is going to.
The tension in that scene is real.
Yeah, like that was probably peak character for him for me, and I always look back at him with a certain fondness because of some of those moments.
A lot of great moments. Again, I thought it was worth mentioning because he does have a pretty quick tail off, but Jeff Bridges absolutely killed it. Very, very good villain for most of the movie. Love the twist. I mean, didn't expect a twist when I first saw it in theaters and stuff like that. Good. Well done. Just falls off at the end.
In terms of kind of our itinerary here, would you guys have any estimate as to how many times you've seen this movie?
Whew.
In total?
I've got to be floating around, if not slightly north of 10.
I'm probably around there. I gotta be.
Incompletion.
I might be further than that. Let's see. I could be crazy and do the math, but I started doing full MCU rewatches right around the time that Guardians of the Galaxy came out.
Okay.
So just about every Marvel movie that came out after that, maybe skip a few, I guess. I would start rewatching from the beginning, and obviously there were way less at that point. So I may be closer to 15.
Okay. I definitely have seen bits and pieces and stuff like that, and it is a movie that I will often just throw on when I go to bed. So, I mean, Disney Plus has made that very easy for me. I'm looking for a movie. I'm not going to watch this. I just want to hear it for about a half hour until I fall asleep. I'll click on Iron Man all the time. Full viewing's probably close to 10.
I might be more on the same boat, actually.
My gut's telling me between like 8 to 10, 8 to 12. 8 as the minimum. If I had to put money on it, I would put money on 9 or 10.
Okay.
Maybe 10.
I like it. Very accessible nowadays, obviously. Disney Plus. Yeah, we've got the Blu-rays. As you can see, you can get those very cheap on Amazon. We'll throw the link in if you still like the physical media copies of those. And yeah, you can, of course, rent it on Amazon Prime. John, is there anything else I'm missing before we get into the latter portion of this?
Latter portion being ranking?
Right. Yeah.
I think you covered it with Obadiah, but we wanted to talk about favorite non-titular characters. So anybody other than Iron Man, I've got to stand out there other than Obadiah. For me, Jarvis. So Paul Bettany is Jarvis. We take for granted how great that relationship is. I remember seeing this for the first time in like being blown away at that kind of like just relationship Tony has with an AI and the quippiness and how smooth and just buttery it is. I think Jarvis is a huge standout, and I think especially when I first saw this movie was a huge standout.
Yeah, good call. Am I the only one who thought that was Jude Law for the first few times I saw this movie? because I definitely thought it was Jude Law.
Yeah, you're the only one.
It might just be you.
Damn it. Okay, never mind. Just cut that out. Rashawn, favorite non-Tony Stark character.
I gotta go with Pepper. I mean, again, her significance as we move forward with these movies is obviously, doesn't even have to necessarily be mentioned. And again, the chemistry that Gwyneth Paltrow and RDJ have, like we talked about earlier, really carries the movie, to be honest. Their relationship and seeing that bond form at these early stages here is again, it's his lifeline. It's literally his besides the arc reactor, it's literally his lifeline to be somebody, the hope that Tony has to be a better person. There was a line in the beginning of the movie that I have here from Jensen that says, "So you're a man who has everything and a man who has nothing."
Yeah.
Because if you think about that, before that, he had everything. He had the money, he had the company, he had all this stuff. But when you get into that nothing piece, what besides that, when you strip that, what do you really have, Tony? And again, didn't have kids at the time, didn't have a real significant other at the time, didn't have honestly a respectable legacy to leave behind either. As far as he was called the Merchant of Death, and this movie is him turning from that Merchant of Death to Iron Man, and the person that keeps him on that straight and narrow, and the one that helps him get to superhero status is Pepper. And then he builds more morals and things from there.
Yeah, that was his touchstone to reality, and really his only relationship that he had. Now, I gotta take a quick segue. Josiah, you say your favorite Obadiah Stane line is the when he's talking to the guy about how Tony Stark was able to build that, right?
I don't know if it's necessarily my favorite, but
was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps.
Aaron Weaver, thank you for calling in live to the MCU Reviewed. Josiah's a big fan of that, so I just needed to hear it from the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Aaron Weaver. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
So I legitimately thought you were playing just a clip from the movie.
Dude, you have to see him do it in person. This man, Aaron Weaver.
Yeah, person.
Shout out.
I think I have seen him do it in person.
So good. So good. Thank you, Aaron, for calling. I appreciate you.
I was just him and Han, but yeah, definitely that's not my favorite.
Now it is. Absolutely. Now you have no choice.
Yeah, that's kudos.
Thanks,
that's
Aaron.
amazing. So yeah, with regards to non-Tony Stark characters here, I gotta say, man, behind every great man is an even better woman.
Yeah,
that's Pepper Potts, man. That is, especially I talked about in the beginning. That's one of my first notes. Seeing their relationship evolve. She's his moral compass. She fulfills Jensen's kind of direction to Tony. Don't waste your life, right? Yes. Make something of yourself past this money, this fame, your playboy, what have you. And he does. And he even says it at some point in the movie, relatively early on, you're all I've got. So he definitely starts thinking about that when Jensen has that conversation right before he passes away. And Jensen is such a forgotten character. I feel like in the scheme of things, he's such an impactful character for being on screen for such a short period of time. And
Agreed.
Really, Tony doesn't get out of there without him, right? So he helps him along his journey. For me, I would say specifically this movie, two more characters to love. Gotta love Jon Favreau in very, very limited minutes is Happy. I've come to become such a Jon Favreau fan over the years, whether it's what he's done with the MCU, with Iron Man, even things like the Chef Show, or my goodness, the Mandalorian now. I love that guy. He's just a guy I would love to hang out with. It feels like he has just been such an integral part of that to me. Agent Coulson, look what happened with him. Like he became a recurring character. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. became a thing. That's another thing. But for me, it does come back to Jeff Bridges. Obadiah is that secondary character for me. That would be my favorite non-Tony Stark character.
Oh yeah.
Anything else that we wanted to get to? Any kind of closing thoughts?
One thing for me, it gets me every time I watch this movie, without fail. It is you can't help but not love not the first test flight scene when he's in the silver suit and he's doing all of that, but the first real run as Iron Man in that classic Mark II.
When he goes to that town, that like the people that kidnapped him were in, right.
And it's the moment that you get in every superhero movie where the superhero gets to show off their powers, quote unquote, for the first time.
That was amazing.
It's just the reason why it's so amazing seeing it. Of course, trying to put your viewing lens back in 2008, seeing the gadgets that Tony has then, and then just fast forwarding to Infinity War and Endgame and just seeing the gadgets he then has, and then trying to think about what he would have done to those guys with the technology he eventually develops for the Iron Man.
Just the nanotech alone, we wouldn't even have had these 3 movies. Just done.
Exactly. It just would have been over. Yeah. Obadiah even himself wouldn't have stood a chance. So it's funny seeing stuff like that. And again, just putting on that lens of now we know all of these things, right, that happen, and then just trying to bring it back to where you were back then. So that's awesome. And then the immediately following that is the plane scene with the whole military thing.
That was cool.
Yeah.
So the call with Brody.
Was awesome.
That's really
right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yep. I think we're talking like little moments like that too. I'm a big fan of the fight at the end with Obadiah. And they loop it all back to his first flight run where he goes straight up and he goes, "How'd you solve the ice problem?" And he's like, "What ice problem?" And that was a very cool callback. Very great Tony Starkism. One of my favorites.
That is one thing on kind of our list that I had missed was quote unquote that moment. Maybe one moment that stuck out in your mind. Maybe one of your favorite moments. If you guys have other moments that you haven't mentioned yet, think about it. For me, one thing that sticks out is when Tony goes back to where he was, right around the area of that cave, and goes and basically frees the citizens that are there and kind of coming under fire. And when he takes kind of like the captain of that militia group there and says, "He's all yours." Yeah. To me, that was a really nice moment that sticks out in my mind of him kind of saying, "Hey, let's put this suit to use and let's see what kind of damage we can do." He obviously he puts it to good use, and he does that, and he reunites the father with his boy and his family there. To me, that was always that was one of the first Iron Man steps.
Rashawn, just to clarify, that was the same scene you and I were just talking about, right?
Yep.
Just make sure I just wanted to make sure that Rashawn wasn't talking about a very different scene, and that you got that, and I was the one that was left out of the loop. You were the one left out.
No.
It's okay.
I just wanted to further elaborate and mention that it.
Got it.
That was kind of
so cool.
my moment for what we were going to talk about. Obviously, there's so many to choose from when we look back on this.
I think that moment still stands and still hangs around with some of the best, like, all right, this is like my first go at this. Look what I can do moments when it comes to superheroes. I think of like the Raimi Spider-Man movies when he first learns to swing, stuff like that. Like I think this moment for Iron Man still stands as one of the better ones.
The score in this scene is perfect, by the way.
Yeah, it didn't stand out to me. Not much of the music in the early MCUs really hit me the way it does, obviously, in the later stuff. But I'll have to re-listen for that.
If we're still talking scenes, again, I referenced this earlier, but besides that scene, I think the scene, I mean, not even technically in the movie, is I'm going to go back to the Nick Fury, man. It doesn't just, not to reiterate the same points again, but again, just seeing that for the first time. And again, to this day, regardless of knowing what happens in the future or not, I literally sat here watching that again, and I still get goosebumps when he says the Avengers Initiative. So cool. And then just know what comes after.
I think, so we talked about a few moments there, especially from different ranges of emotions, and Rashawn, you even mentioned how in the scene I chose, how the score kind of emphasized that a little bit. Is there no, you mentioned also the Avengers Initiative in the post credits, but is there no more put your stamp on this movie? This movie has arrived than the very end of the film when Tony Stark says, "I am Iron Man."
Yeah.
Yes. 1000%. Yes.
3000%.
You got me.
Honestly, and how epic was it to begin with, and let alone where we get to in recent times in the MCU, especially with Endgame, how awesome that book ends itself.
Well, the cool thing about that is we probably won't get enough time to talk about this in latter movies, because it's something that the MCU has trained us to throw out the notion of. This movie, and we see it progress, and we don't see a change until the first Spider-Man. Secret identities, who cares? Throw them out the window. That was one of the first major MCU things that Kevin Feige and them did, that threw out like those old comic book tropes. They threw out a lot of comic book tropes, but this was the first one of secret identities. Who cares? It doesn't matter.
That's a great point.
And we don't see that again till Spider-Man, and that's only because that is a true core element of the Spider-Man character. But again, like, as we progress through the MCU, and by the time we get to Civil War, that's the main reason why they had to change that movie altogether, because it's like, oh, this isn't focused around secret identities like it is in the comics. We got to change this. So that was something that I loved, and they found a way to still make it work for every hero that didn't have a quote unquote secret identity.
Yeah, they made it a thing, right? Like that's such a great point, Rashawn. Honestly, like, we forget about it, or I forget about it now, but that was always, it felt like, trope is the perfect word. It was behind closed doors. It was a secret identity, had another personality when it came to a persona in public, and the MCU changed that right off the get-go. Movie number one, I am Iron Man. And you got to love it too, right? Because even leading up to that scene, like, he's talking about, or in that scene, he's talking about, I'm not a superhero. Oh, it wouldn't make sense. Like, in his head, he wants that, right? Tony Stark wants that attention, that publicity.
That's the guy.
He's perfect. He's perfect. I love it.
It's good stuff.
Good stuff all round. John, anything else?
What a good movie. I had so much fun to watch. I've seen that movie so many times. It's just so fun to watch. I'm so excited.
I'm going to be watching this again when I'm editing Geekiverse stuff tonight, I think.
You go.
This is going to be my background movie.
Heck yeah, you are.
We do want to mention, as we mentioned earlier, Fantastic is sponsoring this series here. We're going to be doing some giveaways courtesy of Fantastic. John, why don't you mention what we're going to be doing here for Twitter?
Oh yeah, so the idea, at least with this current Iron Man video, is we're going to throw out a tweet. It's going to have this video in it. Share it with your friends, but this tweet will also specifically say that, hey, this is the giveaway tweet. We're giving away one shirt from Fantastic. Retweet this tweet. Make sure to follow the Geekiverse, and you will be entered to win the shirt. So we'll have a very specific tweet. You won't be confused. We'll make sure it's obvious that this is the giveaway tweet. Give us a retweet. Give us a follow on Twitter. Share this video with your friends. You'll be entered to win the shirt.
Easy enough.
Simple.
So a little bit again about Fantastic, our wonderful partner here. They are a division of 26 shirts. Quick about 26 shirts. At 26 shirts, we sell different limited edition themed t-shirts every 2 weeks. Fantastic has a little bit different model on their time frame, but same concept. After a shirt's respective run is over, the design is retired and never sold again. For every shirt sold, a donation is made to a specified family in need or charitable organization. You can find more about Fantastic at 26shirts.com/Fantastic. Again, they've raised over $750,000 to date for these families and organizations that are in need. Thank you very much to Del Reed and company for partnering up with this. We're super excited. We support those guys. They support us. And more importantly, they support those who are really in need. You won't find better people than that. All right. So we're gonna get to the rankings
Yeah,
here.
this is the biggest part. I mean, so every episode we are going to rank the MCU. Not only is it the MCU Re-Viewed, we're viewing them again, but we're also reviewing them. And with reviewing comes ranking. So let's get into the ranks, guys. Let's pull up the little graphic here. The
All
MCU.
right, I'm so excited to see where this lands.
All right, so this is our MCU ranking image. You guys can't see it. I can. The folks at home can. There's one spot available, and it's Iron Man. So right now, Iron Man's sitting pretty at number 1.
We did it.
We did it.
Now, we're gonna, as we mentioned, rank these week by week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jeff Pavlak of the Geekiverse. You may know him from our other shows throughout the years. He would list this, currently having ranked all 23 movies as the number 1 MCU movie when all is said and done. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not going to be my number 1 movie.
That is it's a statement from Jeff. I don't know if it's a good one, but it's a statement.
Jeff made an interesting statement. Also, we won't get into this, but he said on social media, and I've known this for a while, but he went public with it. He said Batman Begins is the best movie in the Nolan trilogy.
Yeah, I saw that. Come on, Jeff.
Jeff, I saw that as well.
We're not getting into that.
Jeff?
This isn't the Nolan trilogy in reviewed. This is MCU reviewed.
See, John, just like 2008, Batman overshadowing these movies.
Come on, man.
So
it's always happening.
Yeah, Jeff has a fondness for Origins, but we'd love to hear from you regarding the MCU here. Where will Iron Man rank on your list ultimately? Obviously, right now, we're 1 for 1.
Number 1.
We're really excited to get on with these. You've got a week to watch The Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, that's next. We're going. Yeah, like I said, in sequential order, release date. Incredible Hulk came out surprisingly close to Iron Man in terms of release date. It was like
very close.
I think
it was very.
I think
close.
it was like May, July. Something. It was like a couple of months. It was very. They were 100% in theaters at the same time, like at my local theater, for sure. I remember that for a fact. Weird stuff.
A little bit different nowadays,
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
But wrap it up here. Where can everyone find you on social media so we can debate these rankings together, John?
Yeah, find me at Disruptoid. I'll be talking a lot about these movies. Aside from these reviews, I want to be in Twitter. I want to be hopping in there, getting in, hearing your rankings, and more so than my Twitter, follow the Geekiverse because we're going to be posting these reviews. We want to hear your impressions for the Incredible Hulk even before we film it. So I would love to be able to take some people's Twitter reviews and get those in this episode or in this next episode too, and see what the people are thinking about the Incredible Hulk and all the movies moving forward. The other 22 we're working with here. That's going to be a lot of fun. Watching the Incredible Hulk, is that going to be a lot of fun? Jury's still out. No, it's not. It's not going to be fun. That's it. That's all I got. Spoilers.
Yeah, I like the. Come on, all right,
we'll get to it next week.
We're gonna get into it.
I enjoy the Hulk for what it was, the Incredible Hulk.
We'll talk about it next week.
We'll get into it. Incredible Hulk, Dark World. We're talking about Battle of the Titans here. It's great.
Oh my god! Why did I sign up for this again?
Rashawn, you're on a number of Geekiverse shows nowadays. You're all over the place. What are some of those shows that people can find you on, and where can they find you on social media?
So you can find me right here on the MCU Reviewed. You can find me on the if I could speak English, that would be great. You can find me on our Disney Plus cast. You can also find me on what do we call it?
I knew that was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen because we always refer to it as G3. So no fault to Rashawn there.
Our gaming podcast. What is our gaming show called, fellas? Help me out.
It's Geek Scott Game. We always shorten it to G3 just for convenience sake. But you're all over the place, man.
You would think I would learn that, right?
It's only your second one.
Honestly, and we always call it G3 in our chat, so that is not your fault. Yeah. But ladies and gentlemen, Rashawn has been a wonderful addition to the Geekiverse. He stepped right in like he's been here for years. He's doing a wonderful job for us, so definitely get involved with him on social media, especially for these MCU rankings.
And social media, Twitter, True King 0.
Also, when you said that you needed to speak English, I was like, did someone accidentally switch your channel to Dutch? Because we talked about that on...
Yes.
Sorry. Sorry. Let's plug here. The Geekiverse has a nice birthday coming up. We are turning 6 years old in the month of May. So, to celebrate, we're doing a few things. one of those things is discounted merch in our online store. So go to thegeekiverse.storeenvy.com. You can purchase any one of our shirts that we've got, over 20 designs at a discounted rate, including, if you're watching the video version, I know Mike's kind of in the way there, but it says, I love you 3000 if you're listening in at home. So check that out. If there's got to be a design in there that you like, we'd appreciate the support. Thanks for tuning into this episode. I'm telling you right now, we're going to have an absolute blast with this. Depending on the week, some of these weeks may be kind of iffy, as we mentioned. But you know what? We're talking about Marvel. We're talking about what we love here, again, for the most part. And we're doing it together, whether it's Rashawn, myself, and John, or you, the community. We appreciate you tuning in and being a part of this. Get involved on our Twitter, as we mentioned. That's @_Geekiverse. Can't wait, guys. Incredible Hulk next week. Get watching.
Oh. Got to figure out what
John is so excited, guys. If you could only, if you're listening to the podcast, he's got the biggest grin right now. It's great.
Last time I watched this movie, I just remember it not being my favorite. But hey, I think I'll throw this out there. I've only seen The Incredible Hulk once. One time.
Oh my goodness!
Wow. Spoilers for next week. I've only seen this movie once. So will I like it more my second time? You'll have to find out.
And with that, for Rashawn and John, I'm Josiah. We'll catch you next week, next Monday, for an episode of MCU Review, The Incredible Hulk. Thanks for watching.